Hello, BookTube. I have a tag for you, even though it's Saturday. It's a tag from a channel that was new to me called History Lit. I just found it, and it's a real good one. It deserves to go viral. It's something that affects almost all of us, except for the few hardy pioneers who've gone all digital. It's the Shelf Respect tag. It's all about your bookshelves, mostly about your bookshelves. And I like a lot of the questions, so I have relocated here to the little book room to help let the backdrop help me demonstrate. And question number one is, how do you organize your books on your shelves? And I don't have anywhere near as much organization as I should have, but the books in the rest of Hyde Cottage have subject organization. All of the comic book graphic novels are all together, for instance. All of the books collecting book prefaces, book essays, book reviews are all together. All of the biographies are together. All of the new releases, the forthcoming books for 2025 are all together. All of the mass market paperbacks are together, except for all of the mass market romance novels, which are also all together. History is split up just because I don't think I have a single space big enough for all the history books together. But even in that split, the royal histories are all together. The Roman histories are all together. The Kennedy histories are all together. So outside of the little book room, there's a lot more organization. Inside the little book room, this is a place for those special books. This is a place, I mean, we like to think that all of our books are special, but for me, there's a definite gradient. For me, the books that are in this room I am less likely to cycle through than the books anywhere else. These are the keepers. And here, there is not nearly as much organization as I'm sure another type of bookish person would want. All of the Penguin Classics are together. And just recently, I made a bookshelf floor to ceiling for all of the non-Penguin canonical classics, all the various editions of Dostoevsky or Shakespeare or Tale of Genji that I have are all there one way or another. No uniform editions at all. Just the ones that I've accumulated over the years that I like are all in that. Then there's a bookcase in the corner. This is a small room. Two of the bookcases in the corners are diagonal and face the room. The bookcase in the corner there are two little bookcases stacked on top of each other, and they have the tallest shelves of any bookcase that I have. So most of the oversized books, the art books, the collections of New Yorker cartoons, the nature books, most of those have migrated onto that two bookcase stack, just because they fit there. And then just recently, the bookcase right after that, as you're circumnavigating the room, is Greek and Roman classics in English language translations. I just went through and pulled everything and put them all there. But then all the rest of this, there's no organization at all. I love roaming around the bookshelves in this room. This room is at almost peak capacity for bookshelves. I love roaming around in the bookshelves, so finding things, putting things back in the wrong place, rearranging things. So there's a lot less order there, and that's it. Every once in a while I will be possessed of a desire to increase the organization drastically to everywhere in the little book room and out, but it quickly passes. Question number two is, have you ever merged your collection with your significant other? And no, the answer is no. The refusal to merge collections has been the root of 4 of my divorces from Deb. So no, I don't see why anyone would do that. I mean, yes, marriage is an incredibly deep spiritual bond, but come on, your connection with your books is special. Question number 3 is, do you write your name and or the price you paid in your books? I don't do either. In fact, if a book of mine has a price penciled into it or stamped on it, I remove it. I don't want I don't want a book to carry a price tag on it, especially if there's a chance that I'm going to keep it forever. And I don't put my name in it because I have found way too many books out for sale in the sale lot of the Brattle Bookshop, 1 foot away from the dumpster where they will be thrown out, that are proudly inscribed. It just, once you've seen enough of that, for myself, once I've seen enough of that, I have no desire for that kind of grandiloquence. Although I do mark every book that comes through my hands, whether I plan to keep it or not. Even if I know the minute that I have it, that I am not, in fact, going to keep it, that I'm going to get rid of it as soon as I've read it or as soon as I've consulted it. Even those books, the ones that I know are temporary, I still mark every book that comes through my hands. I don't know, just punctiliousness. Although every once in a while, I am incredibly amused to find my mark in a book that I find out in my travels. Because I know exactly where it is, I know exactly what the mark is. It's not likely that you would see it on your own, and even if you went looking for it, and there's no one else who would make it. So that's always fascinating to me. But I don't put my name in my books. No. Once upon a time, I mean, decades and decades ago, I like everybody else, flirted with the idea of library book plates or something like that. But no, I don't keep a lot. Most of the books that come through my hands, I don't keep. So marking them with my name seems like a waste of time. Question number 4 is, do you keep all of the books you've read or only the most cherished? I do not keep all of the books that I've read, or I would have no room in this house or on this block. No, they come and they go. And I don't think that it's a legitimate grounds to keep the books that you really like either. I know that's a weird thing to say with a backdrop like mine, and I'm still working this out. I imagine I'll be working this out for the whole of my reading life. But I have tried many times to come up with a criteria for why I should keep a book. Usually I am spurred to wonder about questions like that by the fact that I have too many books. But the fact that I cherished a book, the fact that I read it and cherished it, it should not be reason to keep it. A book is to be read. It's not an heirloom. It's to be read. If you're going to cherish it but not read it, then you shouldn't have it. But then again, I do have some books that I'm keeping only because I cherish them. So I don't keep all the books that I've read. No. And I'm very fish-eyed about keeping books just because I cherish them. I don't really know what my criteria are. I think ultimately the criteria boils down to revisitability. Do I revisit books? Do I revisit a book often enough so that I should own it? That's certainly true of the books in this room. That wouldn't really explain. It's certainly true of the books in this room, and it is certainly true of the wall of collected book reviews. I go back to that all the time. But the rest, I don't know. I don't think that a lot of them would survive that kind of a test. So I don't really know. I haven't yet worked out the perfect criteria for why I keep a book and why I don't. Question number 5 is, does the style and quality of your bookshelves and or the cases matter? Well, you wouldn't think that it would matter to me because this always strikes people as amazing, but it is true, and the last 10 years have been, or 15 years have been documented as true. I not only claim it, I've posted in situ pictures with timestamps to prove what I'm saying, which is that with only a tiny handful of exceptions, every single bookcase here at Hyde Cottage was taken off the sidewalk on trash day. Every single one of them. I was walking my beagles or my girls or Frida and came across a bookcase on trash day that was in perfect condition, maybe a little dusty, and that was light enough for me to carry back here and close enough for me to make the trip. You wouldn't think that would be so many bookcases. There are like 30 bookcases here. You wouldn't think that would be so many, but over time, yeah, all of them, all the different shapes and sizes. Many's the time where I encounter such a thing on the sidewalk and think, oh, you're not as young as you used to be. You can't lug that around. It's way too heavy for you to get back home. I still managed to do it anyway. Even the really heavy ones, I still managed to do anyway. Get them all the way back here, get them up the stairs, get them onto the kitchen floor, wash them and wipe them, and then figure out where to put them. That's a huge percentage, probably 90% of the bookcases that are here. So obviously I'm not picky about style, since none of them are matching styles. There's only a tiny exception where the style brings a smile to my face every time, and that's why I chose this location, because that's these things. That's these bookcases right behind me. There's a wall of bookcases here in the little book room that are all custom made. They were all custom made for me. I have never gone online and bought an IKEA bookcase or gone to, Home Depot or whatnot and bought an assemble your own bookcase or anything like that. That's what I'm trying to say. I've never bought a bookcase retail. Just a prefab bookcase retail. I get them from the garbage, or in the case of this wall, each one of these was custom made for me by a young man who plotted them out on paper with no shirt on, and then took the materials to his garage and made them with no shirt on, and then, as a kind of courtesy bow on top, delivered them with no shirt on. And they are wonderful. They are rock solid, much like their maker, at least then, all those years ago. They're rock solid, and they are the perfect shape. As far as I'm concerned, the perfect shape for a bookcase is that it be tall and thin and deep. So the normal shape of a bookcase, you're going to end up, more often than not, you're going to end up having a space where that doesn't work. Whereas a tall, thin bookcase can be made to work virtually anywhere. It's just ironic that for the last, 5 years or so, all of these that could be made to work anywhere, I am making into a literal wall. But I did that for a reason. I wanted to look at them all the time because their physical presence brings me a great deal of joy. And you can see the maker made them in two different ways. This one is tall and thin, but not deep. The shelves are tall enough for a standard hardcover and then a couple on top. But there's just a barest lip, just a fraction of an inch there. Whereas this one is tall and thin and also deep. I could double stack books here. Instead, I have shelf stuff and I stack books there. And with these, the rule that I use is I have to be able to see part of the spines of the books that are behind these. No double stacking. I have to be able to look and see every book that's in this room. So this stack could be a little higher because I'll still be able to know what each of these books back here is, but no higher than that. And certainly you can see this would take a double stacking of hardcovers, but I don't do that. And these bring me joy. I wish I had a whole collection of them, but I have no room for them. Almost every available inch of wall space here at Hyde Cottage is now taken up by bookcases, which you would think would mean that the next time the Bean and I are out strolling on trash day and see a bookcase, that I would just ignore it. But I bet I don't. I bet I don't ignore it. I cannot pass up an empty bookcase, I guess, even though I don't always keep them. The bookcase that I'm filming on right now I don't use it for books. It has no back. It's really a table of some kind, so I use it for clothes. There's also a big, heavy, very deep, two-shelved, waist-high bookcase that I found it on the trash. I found both of these on the trash, but I found that thing on the trash, and I don't know if it was originally made to be a bookcase, but the dimensions are completely wrong. Books get lost in it, so I use it also for clothes, but I don't have a closet in this room and I don't have a hamper, so I think that's enough space for clothes. I don't know where I would put another bookcase, but if I saw one, I bet I would grab it. Then question number 6 is, do you have any gripes or complaints about bookcase construction? Well, I mentioned a couple there. I want my bookcases to have a back to them. And also, I want the dimensions to be right. I want it to be clearly made for books. The only other complaint that I have is one that History Lit also had, which is shelf bowing. These things are absolutely rock solid. These are not going to bend or bow or warp at all. They're absolutely rock solid, beautifully stained. He did a great job on them. One after another, just need another bookcase. And I would say yes. And they are definite keepers. They're wonderful pieces. But every once in a while, I will grab a bookcase from the trash, and it will turn out to have one of those cheap particle board shelves that do bow underweight. And sometimes that's a deal breaker. Sometimes I will lug that in here, I'll clean it up, and then I'll realize, these shelves are just weak. They're going to be no good in a year. So I will then put it back down on the sidewalk. I'll put it out with the trash the next time the trash goes out. But every once in a while, I will like the shape of the bookcase that I find like that enough so that I keep it, and instead of throwing it away, I use a stopgap measure for the the bowing of shelves, which is you start at the bottom shelf. You line the bookcase with the shelf with books. It's got all these shelves above it. All of them are going to bow. They're all the cheap particle board. You take that bottom shelf, you line it with books. You've got space on top of those books, like up here. You've got space on top of those books. And what I do is I get books that are perfectly sized so that they wedge into that space. And they prevent the shelf above them from bowing. And then I do that with the next shelf and wedge those books in there, really wedge them in so that the shelf cannot bow, and just do that up to the top. Every once in a while, I'll be in an era where I do that. I'm not right now. I'm not plagued with bowing shelves right now on any of my shelves. Every once in a while, I will be in an era where I will do that in a bookcase, and I always think the same thing once it's done, and I feel so proud of myself for doing that, because of course the limitation of that is going to have come to your mind right away, which is that you can't use those books. You can't pull them out and leave them out. They're architectural as much as they are intellectual. And every time I do that, I think that thought and think, well, if you're wedging books on this bottom shelf, putting books on this bottom shelf specifically because you want them to be architectural, meaning you're never going to consult them, then you shouldn't have them. Then you shouldn't have those books. It shouldn't be that you found a canny way to use them. You should get rid of them and get rid of the bookcase too. So that might happen. You never know. Then question number 7 is, do you ever stack books horizontally? Well, obviously you can see that I do. I try not to stack them horizontally because that can lead to caulking. But I will shelve them horizontally. I simply cannot resist an upper space like this. I simply cannot resist it. It's not an impediment when I'm taking a book off the shelf. I just hold that with one hand, pull with the other. So I can't resist doing that, but I try not to, aside from a couple here and there, I try not to make big stacks of horizontal books. Not in the least of which because that makes them less accessible. Question number 8 is, what are your 5 favorite jackets or covers? I don't have 5 favorite jackets or covers, and I think the next one's the same way. Number 9 is, what are your 5 most disliked jackets or covers and why? The only idea I could come up with here are the die cut covers that sometimes publishers will do, where you've got. Do I have an example here? Probably not. You'll have the paper dust jacket, but the paper dust jacket will have a hole cut in it to show something on the naked hardcover. I don't like those because they're just made to tear. They're just going to tear on you. But I don't see many of those anymore. But then again, I don't see many of these things anymore, except for the stuff I get in the mail. I don't have a retail bookstore here in Boston, so I don't see what publishers are doing. And then question number 10 is there such a thing as too many books? There isn't such a thing as too many books on my Kindle, except for its storage capacity. But I have a Kindle with a lot of storage capacity, and on top of that, there's my iPad mini, which is just as good a device for reading on and has a lot more storage. So aside from that, there is no such thing as having too many ebooks. They're easy to find, they're easy to search for, they're easy to organize. They all weigh the same. No matter how many you have, you could have 1,000 books on your Kindle, or 10,000 books on your Kindle. It's still going to weigh the same. When it comes to print and paper books, obviously I would say, yeah, you can have too many books, definitely. I know that I'm in a little bit of an odd position to say that, but I do believe it. There are so many warning signs that I use myself. I can imagine that people with a lot more books than I have probably have a lot more warning signs. If, for instance, I am hunting for books at a used bookstore and I find something, a particular book, a particular edition, I think, oh boy, I really want that. And I get it and I'm really happy with it. I get it all the way back here and then I find that I already have it. Well, that's a sure sign that I have too many books. But also, do I have large neighborhoods of books that I'm not visiting anymore? Do I have books that I just fulfill some sort of, I don't even know, some sort of weird idea of completeness, but that don't actually do anything for me? I don't actually use? That is another sign for sure that I have too many books. The fact that I liked a book is not sufficient reason for having a copy of it. The fact that I reviewed a book is not sufficient reason for having a copy of it. The fact that I might one day down the line find somebody now unknown to me to give it to is not sufficient reason for having a book. And yet I managed to to flout those all the time, and plenty of other strictures as well. So right now, I would say I have too many books, even though right now I have fewer print and paper books than at any time when I was not traveling. So, I ought to pat myself on the back just a little because I'm doing fairly well. But nevertheless, I could do better. I bet you could too. Although sometimes I feel a little envious, when I see a booktuber filming in front of two bookcases and they make it clear in their videos that is their book collection. Something sweet about that, just undeniably sweet about that. But the final prompt is to tag someone, and I don't know who this will be. I'm not good at tagging people. I don't know who wants to be tagged. I don't know who wants to be tagged by me. I don't know who doesn't do tags. If you have a book collection enough to fill a bookcase with shelves, or 2 bookcases with shelves, or 10 bookcases with shelves, feel free to do this for no other reason than that I want to hear your answers. I'm really nosy and want to hear your answers. Well, I thank HistoryLit for tagging me, because it's always fun to talk about your bookshelves. So please do. And I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.